Hello everyone, I'm Lynn Coda, I'm the superintendent for the Franklin Northeast Supervisor Union.
And I'm Morgan Daybell, the business manager for Franklin Northeast.
In the work we've been doing around our new school district budgets, we've had several common questions that have come up, so we wanted to take an opportunity to produce a few short videos to be able to help to answer some of those most common questions. One of the things that comes up, Morgan, is people are really struggling to understand the formula that we use in the state of Vermont to fund public education. I'm wondering if you could try to take that formula and put it in its simplest possible terms to help our community members to understand what things impact our tax rate in our communities.
Certainly. So all school spending that goes through local budgets and local budget decisions come through what's called the education fund. And that's made up of three major sources. The first is property tax on residences, and that makes up about a quarter of the ed fund. Roughly 40% comes from property tax on non-residential property, primarily businesses, second homes, rental properties, things like that. The remainder comes from consumption taxes like the sales and use tax, gets some rooms and meals tax, lottery, there's a little bit of Medicaid transfer in there as well, and some other minor streams of money flow into that. So all the education fund money is collected by the state and then is distributed out to the different towns based on different districts based on their approved school budgets. The amount that needs to be raised in those towns is based on the budgets that are passed by the local communities. So at its most basic, the state looks at the budget that's passed or the spending plan for that next year, divides it by a count of kids, and it's a weighted count. So the state has added some different weights to categories of students that they know are more expensive to educate. That is then divided by the yield, which is a number set by the legislature towards the end of the legislative session, and that number is calculated to ensure that the state is raising enough money to support all of those budgets that have been approved in the communities. So spending divided by kids divided by yield gets you your district tax rate, that rate that we talk about before we apply the CLA.
Okay. Another question that has come up is, we've started to talk a little bit about the tax rate floor in Franklin Northeast, and in another segment we're going to talk about how our weighted per pupil spending compares with other districts across the state. For us and FNESU in both of our districts, on the Enosburg-Richford side and on the Northern Mountain Valley side, it's important for our boards to pay attention to that tax rate floor. Can you tell us a little bit about why that's so important for us?
Sure, and this is really the first year we've had to have these conversations with our boards. But in Vermont, every community, every district has a floor on their tax rate so that they can never go below $1. And the reason for this is that you might have one of the gores or a town that doesn't have any students. The state still wants to tax those properties because it's a statewide funding system and all our kids are all our kids. So they've established this floor. No matter what your budget is, you will not spend less than $1 on that pre-CLA district level tax rate. The challenge with that, and the challenge this year in terms of establishing our second budget, is that we're creating budgets. We know the amount we spend has an impact on that final tax rate, but the amount the legislature sets for the yield also has an impact on that tax rate. And so in the conversations this year, we have been cautioning boards not to cut too close to that $1 floor, because we don't know what the legislature is going to do in the months ahead. And we run the risk of basically falling below that floor or cutting opportunities for our kids and still having a tax rate at that floor level, even if our budget would deserve a 95-cent tax rate.
So we could be reducing opportunities without it having a positive impact on our taxpayers. We'd be sending money back into the education fund?
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you, Morgan. I hope that this video was helpful in terms of understanding what the education funding formula is in the state of Vermont, how the dollar yield that's set by the legislature impacts our ending tax rate, and how the dollar floor and the minimum amount of tax that all communities in Vermont need to spend is really important to us in FNESU this year.